This episode of the Fine Homebuilding podcast is brought to you by Loctite Tight Foam. Say no to inefficient and drafty. Say yes to Loctite Tight Foam. When pros need to seal gaps too small for insulation, but big enough to create a draft, they reach for Loctite's Tight Foam. The high-density foam forms a tenacious bond to most common building materials, stays flexible to prevent cracking, and keeps air, moisture, and pests out of the house. Whether you're adding R value to the rec room or finishing a boring basement, give that space a second chance with Loctite Tight Foam. Visit LoctiteProducts.com for more information. Hi, podcast listeners. Today's episode is a best of compilation pulled from the Fine Homebuilding podcast archives. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Enjoy. Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding podcast, our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. I'm joined by Associate Editor Matt Milham.
Hello.
Rob Watsack, Digital Brand Manager.
Hi.
And producer Jeff Rose.
Hello, everybody.
Please email us your questions at fhbpodcast@taunton.com. You can find previous podcasts and check out the show notes at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. Thanks for being with me, gentlemen.
Yeah, sure.
Kurt writes, I'm looking at a deck upgrade on an existing 20-year-old deck. We want to widen the stairs, currently 30 inches, and replace the decking. I plan to use the composite decking material, but my question is regarding rebuilding the stairs. This is good. We have a sawdust question today. I haven't built deck stairs over 4 treads. I've used 2x12s and cut them for stringers in the past, but I am leery of stringers this long and high with so many cuts. As you can see in the original picture, these stringers are solid 2x material with 2x4 cleats as tread supports. So he has what we describe as closed stringers, and the cleats hold up the treads from underneath. The new treads will be 4 feet wide, so there will be at least one more stringer, if not 2, which will have to be cut, but wondering what the best approach is overall. Are there exterior rated LVLs I could cut for this? If the lumber seems good on the existing stringers, it would be nice to reuse them. I also thought a post and new concrete pier might be a good addition to support where the stairs connect to the deck beam, but that might be overkill. Well, who wants to go first?
You could use, I mean, he could, if he knows how to use a router, he could do some house stringers similar to what he has there.
Outdoors, though, Matt?
Yeah, why not?
You think that's going to trap water and debris and rot?
I don't know.
I think it is. That's my take, anyway.
I mean, caulk it. Just make sure you put some copper naphthenate on your
the cuts.
Yeah.
What's your approach to stairs outdoors?
Oh, outdoor stairs kind of intimidate me, just like they are intimidating this guy, because like he was saying, you're cutting long stringers, so you're basically taking a bulk of the material out of there. I mean,
yeah, you end up with what amounts to about a 2x6 left after you cut the notches for the treads and risers, right?
Yeah, I mean, I try to strike a balance between being lazy and overkill.
Okay.
I mean,
I think that's the right approach.
Yeah, I looking at the span of his deck and his staircase.
Those suckers are long.
I feel like I would love to have some extra supports in the middle. Some extra,
so
some
the solution to those super long stringers is to put an intermediate support post with a beam on top that all the stringers bear on, right?
Yeah, I mean, really, I hadn't read these notes before we got in here, so I didn't look it up. And usually you guys are the ones who are all about codes and specifications. So I'm sure there's a table we can look up to figure out what kind of span he's got going here and where those posts should be.
So the thing to look at is the DCA6, which is the document that the code is based on. It's designed for code acceptance, and this one involves decks. And deck stairs are covered on pages 20 and 22 in the 2015 version of this document. So that gives you real good guidance on how to build them the safe way.
Yeah, I knew Patrick would have the answer to this one.
Well, if it's deck-related, DCA6 is the thing to look at always as a first start. So that's what I would say. And I like notch stringers. I don't like the cleats. I think they trap dirt. I think they're hard to clean. But you need more support if you're going to cut that much wood out of the 2x12.
Yeah, I mean, on an outdoor stair, I mean, sometimes the look of the
Closed
stringers is nice, but yeah, the key to doing anything that lasts outdoors is to not create pockets for water and debris.
Dirt to get into.
And but yeah, it's
And I think that stringers should be 12 inches on center for outdoor stairs, and it's because inevitably there's going to be two people carrying a refrigerator or a front-loading washer up these things, right? And it's going to be a ton of weight.
Yeah.
And, I see it often where people do the closed stringers with those cleats like that, and especially in an outdoor location, a lot of people aren't using the right fasteners, or even if there is, it's tough to find an acceptable way to attach a cleat that's going to support a
tread.
A stair tread.
Yeah.
So the notched stringers is really the safest way
And you're
going
to
to
have to make notched ones anyway, as you point out, Kurt. So, once you make that's one, it's super easy to make as many more as you need.
Yeah.
You use it as a template. And Andy Engel has a book, and it's on our website, and he has articles on how to build stairs. So I would say consult that on the very basics of stair building, and you will be really proud of yourself when this is done, I guarantee, because there's nothing more satisfying than building a set of sturdy stairs. I've done it once or twice. Do you think we answered this question adequately?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically it's go to the resource, get the specs to get to do it right for the span that you've got.
As far as I know, there are no pressure-treated LVL materials, and there might be an LSL, which is looks more like OSB type material. There's definitely PSL, which is parallel strand lumber, which is posts and outdoor beams that they make out of this material, but you're going to find it's ridiculously expensive for making a set of stringers and too thick. I think it's 3 inches. So,
yeah, I mean, I could understand the hesitation to tackle the job of cutting stringers if you've never done it before, and then also the hesitation to add a post, particularly in places like up north where we have deep frost depth, and you got to dig a big hole.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome digging a 4-foot hole.
Yeah, but hey, at JLC, weren't you admiring some of those different column systems there, the footing systems?
So I heard from a gentleman who builds in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. What was his name, Kevin or Keith?
Keith, I believe.
Keith. But he was telling me about his lumberyard sells precast concrete piers with a footing on the bottom and a hole in the top for an eye bolt that you can lower with a machine. You can't; they're too heavy to pick up. But
yeah,
if you could get the machine to put this in the hole, that would seem like an ideal thing to do here.
Well, and what he was saying too is that once you have several of these things on a job, the added cost of renting a small machine,
no big deal,
is worth it because you're ready to build the second those things go in the ground. If those things are a rated footing with the correct marking on it, he said sometimes he doesn't even need to have a footing inspection for them, and
it's fast,
especially on a sloped site like this deck we were just looking at had kind of an unusual site where getting a cement mixer or getting materials up there would just be nice to just be able to drop something in the hole and be done with it.
Totally. Alternatively, Ryobi is now selling at the Home Depot a portable concrete mixer that Rob has been trying out, right, Rob?
Well, not quite yet. I was waiting for some warmer weather.
So anyway, this thing is like the size of a big washing machine, wouldn't you say? It probably holds 2 or 3 bags of concrete.
It actually kind of looks like it's made out of washing machine parts. I mean, it looks like it's a big, lightweight steel
It has
tub.
wheels on it, and it comes apart to move.
And I actually own a portable concrete mixer already that's this big cast iron drum. It holds like 2 bags.
Cast iron?
Yeah, I believe it's cast iron. It's heavy, or at least it's got cast iron gears or parts on it. But it's a big, heavy steel drum, and it's got big, heavy angle iron, and it only tilts back and forth, and it's heavy and cumbersome. This Ryobi one, I haven't used it with the load of concrete in it, but the neat thing about it is it rotates and pivots so that if you're working in a tight location, you don't have to keep shuffling the base around when you're trying to get into the hole.
It seems well made.
Yeah.
I will say it's got a nice DC motor on it with a switch that's in a rocker switch that's in a little protective thing so you don't get concrete into it, and it's.
Yeah, I'll hopefully in the next week or a couple weeks, and now that the weather's warm, I'll test it out on some of my projects and I'll check back.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear because I was super excited to see a concrete mixer for I think it's under $300.
One while we're on the footing thing though, before we go, what do you think about the helical piers for something like this? Is it worth it?
It's not inexpensive. It gets less expensive the more you're doing. I think for doing two, that would be required for this, would be prohibitively expensive, but it is a fantastic product.
Now, what's the company that you've dealt with one of those companies before, right?
Techno Metal Post.
So I was talking to some of those guys at JLC Live about how I had a project that only had a couple of posts, and they were saying that because they have an area where they work, if you're not in a hurry for a small project, they can often kind of hop to your job after they're working on another job in the area.
So that's good to know. Yeah.
So that might cut down the cost.
Because obviously much of the expense is bringing the machine to the job site, and, the cost of that is higher the fewer you're doing.
Yeah. In some places, it's just about the only way to go. Like my neighbors are planning on building steps down a steep hill to the river behind us, and there's no way. Well, it's not even just a matter of getting a machine down there to pour concrete, but it's an old hillside that people have been dumping leaves and brush on for so many years.
Yeah, and you can't.
We have no idea how far they'd have to dig before they even hit something.
No idea what the bearing capacity of that soil is going to be.
Yeah, and the nice thing about those helical piers is that the machine actually measures the tension as it's putting them in, right? So that
it extrapolates it into bearing.
It knows how much pressure it can hold.
Yeah, it's super cool technology. Jeremy, my Facebook buddy, just recently completed a really long boardwalk in a conserved wetlands, and how else are you going to do that?
Yeah,
it's like you're going to bring an excavator into conserved wetlands and dig piers. You can't certainly put the boardwalk on mud.
and most of the time they drive those
Float
things
it.
with like an auger attachment on a back, like a bobcat, or they even have those little walk behind.
Yeah, his
ones.
is a walk behind. It's a tiny machine.
But I was asking about these steep hillside applications where you can't even get an excavator down there, and he said they have.
They'd hook it to something and winch it down.
Well, they actually have what is basically a giant impact driver that they hook up to one of those compressors that you run a jackhammer off of, and so they can get pretty much anywhere now with those things.
That is so cool. Technology is going to be our only hope for human salvation. Question 2 comes from Brett. Good morrow. Where does that come from?
Old-timey Britain.
Is it, right?
Probably.
I'm a college student who is very interested in building his own home. I'm open to using contractors sometime in the future when I actually have money. So this is a guy after my own heart. I'm rather taken with the look of timber frame homes, but in my research, it seems that many timber frame architects like to use hybrid timber framing. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of a purely timber framed home versus hybrid? So I'm a little confused by this because even homes that are timber framed, you need a way to fill in between the timbers, and I'm not sure what he means by hybrid. So
I think, well, I was reading up on this a little bit, but just from my own experience, I think there's no real clear line in the sand where you're a full traditional timber frame and a hybrid. I mean, like the point that a lot of people make is that you have to build a shell around a house or within the walls of a house to enclose your timber frame. So often that's done with stick framing. Sometimes it's done with stress skin or other, prefabricated panels. So the idea is that you're building almost a whole nother house around your house when you're doing that.
It's very redundant.
And it's also expensive. And plus timber framing is expensive because it requires heavy timbers, which are expensive. It requires a certain level of skill.
And you have to move the stuff.
Yeah, and you maybe use a crane or at least some other safety equipment. And
maybe chin pull. Maybe.
Yep. But the thing is, so really there are very few houses that are 100% timber framed because
it needs a skin. It needs a shell.
But even so, I think the idea of a hybrid timber frame, from what he's talking about, I can possibly guess, is a lot of people want the look of a timber frame, so they'll build a great room that's timber framed, or they'll incorporate timbers into the structure.
Yes.
But they may be structural, but it's not a full timber frame from foundation to ridge.
Yeah, I think, Brett, if you're looking to save money, timber framing is not the way to go about it, because stick framing is so resource efficient. The pieces are little, and so you can move them yourself. So, but that said, there's no reason to avoid timber beams, right, for your structural elements, like Rob was saying, undergirders. Maybe you want a cathedral ceiling with some cool timber rafters or whatever. And if you keep the elements within reason, it's not too expensive.
Yeah, I mean, you might want to make sure you're consulting with an engineer or an architect, or look online for some examples of similar work, because when you start incorporating timber beams into stick framing, you got to worry about point loads.
And also, a lot of timbers are not grade stamped. So when you go to integrate those with conventional platform construction, there are no prescriptive guidelines for code enforcement to go with. So then you're talking about engineers' drawings and solutions, which can be expensive.
Yeah, that was going to be my main thing, is that there's not really a prescriptive way to build these things. So it's going to cost you a lot of money up front to get it either engineered or an architect involved to get it stamped before you can even start building.
Totally.
I kind of actually did that sort of hybrid thing when I
So
built,
what do you
built
mean?
my
What do
barn.
you mean when you say hybrid timber frame? I'm still a little foggy on that.
Well, mine is, so you've seen my barn in my backyard. I have a barn that I rebuilt on the original foundation, and I primarily used stick framing for it. It's traditionally framed.
But you have some reclaimed timber elements that are doing structural work.
Yes. So basically, the front has two big barn doors on strap hinges with pintles screwed into the edge of the door jamb. And so I said, well, why don't I just make this simple? And the visible edge of the door is actually some reclaimed timbers, and that is actually incorporated into the stick frame. So I figured, well, it's going to be either a big fat beam or it's going to be a couple of 2x6s. So it's overkill for the framing, but it was actually in a lot of ways less work, because I had these reclaimed timbers lying around, and I didn't have to frame a door opening and trim it out afterwards. It's the whole package all in one step.
Cool. So I love timber framing. It's a big part of what drew me to this industry. When I saw Ted Benson on This Old House in the 80s, when that was having a revival, I was like, that is something I want to do. But the problem with it, despite its beauty and structural help, is you end up building a second structure on the outside somehow to create a building envelope,
Yeah,
So
it's not the most economical way to build a house, but if that's the look you're going for, you just try to incorporate it at the level that you can afford, I guess.
I have heard people, so the other way to do the infill on the timber frame are structural insulated panels, right?
Yes.
And once again, those can be your entire house. They have their own structural qualities. You don't need the frame to hold them up. But they're expensive, and I've heard that they're very noisy. Because they're solid, sounds from outside and in the house make them hard to live with. Like, you hear people walking around.
It's like a drum.
Yeah, you hear noise from outside too. So.
And nowadays with CNC routers making a lot of these components, they actually carve out electrical channels. But when they first started building houses with those things,
how do you do that?
Had to gouge out these channels or drive big pipes through to get the electric in, and it makes it really hard to do any remodel or changes after you've already start putting it in place. But, it's all a matter of, if this is what you want to do, you might as well just figure out the best way to do it. If anybody knows how to build what this guy is looking for, it's Ted Benson and Benson Wood Homes and Unity Homes. They are just such innovators in that. They have a system that they came up with a long time ago where they call it open built construction. The idea is, it goes back to, we were talking one time about how a lot of things trickle over from the commercial and industrial world that are means of making things more adaptable and more efficient to put together. They do these open web floor trusses so that instead of doing a timber frame solid wood deck for the second floor like a lot of traditional timber frames would have, they mimic that by putting tongue and groove boards on the bottom of these open web trusses, and they have complete access at any time by lifting some of these panels of boards out on the bottom to put all of their mechanical
the
systems in.
concept of houses that can adapt and buildings that can adapt. It's like, why don't we make stuff easier to work on?
Yeah, I mean, how many people have built a house and then 5 years down the road have been completely filled their needs the way that they wanted it to. People are, even if it's a new house, a lot of times you walk in and you're like, oh, I wish I put that over there.
Yeah. Lives change. Needs change,
Yep.
I think it's an inadequacy in American housing for sure is how disposable things are built.
Yep. Should just build it all out of Legos. You just restack
I've often thought, like, why aren't baseboards removable so you can run wires?
I think
as an example.
I think someone makes something like that. It's like an electrical chase that has a pop-on cap over it that looks like a baseboard.
But it has to be airtight, right? I mean, it's like it's as far as I know, there's nothing in the marketplace now. But I mean, it seems like that would be easy to do. How many good ideas have we come up with this segment?
No, we shouldn't be talking about these out loud. We should come up, write these down
first, then talk about it.
Yep.
This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. I'm joined by Associate Editor Matt Milham.
What up?
Colin Russell, Director of Video.
Hey there.
And Producer Jeff Rose.
Hey, everybody.
Here's another, somebody wrote recently about the durability of modern materials. And Austin from South Dakota, or is it South? No, yeah, it's Austin from South Dakota is trying to figure out what to do with his new build. Hi, guys. I'm planning a new remodel and trying to coax my wife into disregarding our budget for a few items. We're an average income family in South Dakota, and we know that a luxury home with $10 to $15 per square foot flooring and things of that nature are out of the question. I would tell you, Austin, that I used to think that was expensive too, but there are things that are way more costly than that, even I've seen recently. I would like you guys' input on some of the new, more affordable materials that are available today. Things like laminate or vinyl floors, MDF millwork, and hollow core doors. I've used them all and don't enjoy working with them, much less cutting them and breathing in the byproducts. I prefer to use hardwood or engineered flooring, poplar or finger-jointed primed millwork, and solid core doors. My questions are, what do you guys think of some of the newer materials like laminate and vinyl flooring? Let's take them one at a time, guys, for Austin. So, all right, Colin, what do you think about laminate and vinyl flooring? You have any?
I ripped it all out.
Did you have it? And what did you not? Why did you rip it out?
I just didn't. I wanted to see wood and tile in my house.
What about performance? Did it not perform?
It really didn't have anything to do with that. When I got in my house, I remodeled the whole thing, so I just put down what I wanted to see for the most part.
Yep. And it held up okay?
What I've done?
Well, the stuff that was there.
Well, yes. I think there were those glue-down vinyl tiles, like sort of industrial almost.
Those things are bulletproof.
I mean, I was really impressed. And I think they were pretty old, too,
Mm-hmm. Those are used in commercial buildings. That is a legendary, time-tested, durable building material.
I've seen them a lot in basements, too, actually. Yeah. And
that is an example of something that is less expensive that is bulletproof.
Yeah.
Yeah. But a lot of vinyl flooring is crappy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
There's some in my kitchen, and I hate it.
What do you hate about it?
It always looks dirty. That's the main thing. And I didn't care about that flooring at all. When we bought the house, the first thing I did was move the fridge from one part of the kitchen to another. I was like, I don't care if it scratches the floor. And it just tore gouges in it immediately. I mean, it just wasn't, it's just not very, tough. This particular stuff is not very tough. Yep.
I've had it. My folks had it in their kitchen growing up, and I'm not a fan either. It wears, right? Mm-hmm. I'd rather have something that can wear and then be fixed, like a hardwood floor.
Well, also, there's the patina factor. An engineered or a hardwood floor is going to get a patina that sort of brings character to it, whereas when vinyl starts getting scuffed, it just looks
worn out.
It just looks worn out, so it doesn't age well.
I would agree. Laminate, I have it in the upstairs of the barn because it was like among the least expensive options that was not carpet. And It sucks. It scratches easy. You can't move furniture like without damaging it. It has this sound that just like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Sounds cheap.
It sounds cheap. The next one is hollow core doors.
No.
Oof, hate them. I sometimes put them in, but do not like them.
I don't like them either. I like installing them because they're super light.
Yeah. The issues that I had with them in my house is that they all swelled so much in the summer.
They're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, you would think that they're not supposed to do
And
that.
they're painted? They're finished?
Yeah, they were.
Really?
But I've taken them out now.
You have Luan, right? They were Luan?
Probably.
I mean, they're wood. They look like wood.
They look like wood.
Yeah.
They look like, I mean, they have sort of like a grain pattern in them. They're very light, though, when you when you take them down, or just when you try to open and close them. They open and close really easily. But yeah, they would just swell. And I replaced them with solid doors and I haven't had that problem.
And you bought used doors, right?
They weren't used, but they were misordered, I think. And so they were new. They were still wrapped. They're Brosco doors, but they're solid. And yeah, I got them real cheap at a place that does like this kind of stuff, reclaimed doors and misordered doors and windows.
And there's one of those in every city virtually. Look for Habitat Restores and architectural salvage, I think is what you want to.
Yeah.
And you don't have to use hollow core doors because you can often find doors, and if you had some time and some chops, you can hang them on jambs and have a much nicer thing.
The other thing is sound. I mean,
that's the point I was going to make.
Especially on like a bedroom or bathroom, you know?
They're useless at stopping noise.
Yeah, absolutely.
And inevitably, someone's going to fling it open, and the doorstop is going to go right through it, which is fun to fix because it always looks. The hotel room I stayed at this past few days had a hollow core door in the bathroom that someone had opened into the rope hook, and you could see the Bondo patch.
Right.
They didn't even like try to match the grain. They just like put the Bondo right over it. Terrible. Okay, next, particle board cabinet boxes.
I guess it depends what you have in there. But if they get wet, they are going to swell, and it's going to be a mess.
Yeah. And your take?
Well, I have them.
Uh-huh.
My face frames are wood, but the boxes are.
Me too.
You know, they're heavy, but they're not expensive.
Right.
But also mine have like a vinyl on them, so it's like a photo of a wood almost on the sides, you know. So I mean, I like wood. I'd rather have plywood cabinets.
I would too. I think on the list, particle board cabinets are better than other things because once they're in place, and as Matt suggests, if they don't get wet, they're fine. But
yeah.
Especially a sink base.
My sink base rotted out.
Yeah.
Totally. I had a leak, didn't know about it.
Yeah. So mine is, I talked about replacing my faucet, right? For a long time, it was leaking onto the deck, which inevitably makes its way to the bottom of the cabinet, and it's all blistered in the bottom of the cabinet because of that. And our first home we bought, same deal. Kitchen sink base, made of particle board. At the time, I was working at this lumber yard that had a millwork shop, and the guys were pretty handy. And I brought this box in, and the guy said, "The dumpster's over there." But he fixed it for me anyway. He didn't want to, but he did.
You know, I also think there are some places to get cabinet boxes, right? Like,
I
think Cab Parts is one.
Mm-hmm.
You can get plywood boxes that you assemble yourself.
And they're much less expensive than...
Right. You know, 'cause some people just get the boxes and do the face frames and doors themselves or not. But, you know, I think there are options out there if you can afford it.
Make your own.
There's that option.
It is. We had this conversation a couple episodes ago, and it's appealing and inexpensive, but it is a huge time suck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you need space. I have a backyard shop. Doesn't work.
Yeah, you and I are both working outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we're lucky under one of those pop-up tents, right?
Yeah, when it doesn't blow over.
I love that. Next on the list is MDF trim. MDF trim's fine. Obviously, you can't stain it, and it shows. Fastener puckers pretty bad, but if you can figure that out, it's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just the idea of like working with it. You don't get the satisfaction that you do with wood.
Right.
So
forget coping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's definitely, like you said, paint grade, but it doesn't. I don't know. When you have to like fix it or make a repair, like I don't know.
Yeah. It's second best.
Oh, for sure.
It's cheap. That's a plus.
Yeah, but there are plenty of places for it. I mean, especially like for the, I don't know, if you're doing
well, you
like
just
wainscot.
saw it.
Yeah, if you're doing like wainscot or something like that, or and
built-ins.
Yeah, built-ins, things like that. But yeah, I just saw a guy do MDF returns. So like instead of drywall returns, he was using MDF for that part of the window box, and it cuts extremely straight, so you don't have that weird wacky joint against the window to tape, and it looked great.
Yeah.
So it was a good spot for it.
I think I agree. It's great for most times. Forget using it outdoors. That should go without saying, right?
Yeah. MedX. No.
So that's really not, I mean,
Yeah.
Matt mentions MedX, which is a lightweight MDF sheet product. And when it first came out, people said you could use it outdoors, but it's not that.
Yeah.
They
But
do
it is
make
a little more,
They do make outdoor or exterior grade MDF, but it's a special thing. He asked, what do you think the following generation will think when they're tearing out these materials out of homes? Well, we know. They're going to say, oh, we've seen this before. It's kind of crappy. I've completely remodeled 2 houses now and have ripped out hardwood, cabinets, millwork, and doors that have been in place for 50 years. I have a hard time believing that today's common materials will last that long. I think you're right. How can I, and should I even try to convince my wife to spend more money on materials that will stand the test of time, that knowing that we will only be in the house 3 to 5 years?
Oh, that's a big one right there.
I know.
I mean, if you know you're leaving, how can you justify it unless you want to pass along something of value to somebody that you can't really get a return on necessarily?
And do you want to live with crappy stuff for 3 to 5 years? Like, why do anything?
Well, okay, but let's just say he's redoing all the trim on his windows and he uses MDF and paints it. Whether you did it in wood or MDF, for those 5 years, you're probably not going to know. It's not until it starts wearing and getting beat up and you have to repair it and repaint it that those materials will start showing their, just like we were talking about the patina before. These engineered products don't patina well.
Right.
It doesn't really become part of their character. The products seem broken and used.
Yeah, they're worn out.
Worn out.
I wouldn't cheap on flooring because everybody wants nice flooring. And I know recent real estate sales that I know about have been held up because of, or negotiated because of bad flooring. So, live with something you like and make it
something
good.
You like, but I mean, I think your approach is right, though. It's like if you know you're selling in 5 years, talk to a real estate agent. What are the important things? If it's floor, tile in the granite countertops. I mean, you kind of got to go with that formula unless you just want to make it for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
In which case, maybe you'll stay at the next house longer and make that one out of wood.
Right.
Yeah. The big thing is don't spend a lot of money on stuff that somebody else who comes in after you is just going to say, I don't like that, and is going to rip it out anyway.
Right.
Like, just get something that you like, I guess, that you want to deal with.
And you can't predict what someone else is going to like.
That's the thing. I mean, I see all these houses. I have like a Google alert, or not a Google alert, like an alert set up on Zillow, and it just shows all these houses. And I see them come up. I'll see like an old house come up for like, real cheap, and then somebody buys it and to flip it, and they've put all these finishes in there. And my first thought is always, the first thing I would do is rip out that new flooring they put in, rip out that terrible backsplash, rip out that tile they did in the bathroom, because they're I don't know where they're getting their ideas from, but they're spending all this money on stuff that just is hideous. So don't put all this stuff in thinking you're going to up the resale value necessarily of the house or anything like that, because it may not be of value to the next person.
It might just be hideous.
Yeah.
Sort of a broader perspective on this is because I hear it a lot, like carpenters they used to use this or used to use that. Well, think about it. When you used to shop for building supplies, what was on the shelves or available to you were woods cut down regionally, like solid woods. Today, when you go shopping, whether you do it online or go to the store, products are different. Like, we're not cutting down forests the way we were before. Everything's engineered. Like, it's sort of like what are people going to think in 50 years when they look at this? They'll be like, man, they used to have MDF. I wish I had that, and they're using, who knows what they're using.
Yeah, bug exoskeletons.
Well, 3D printed, like their ink fell apart or whatever, I mean, it's, you gotta, what are we comparing ourselves to?
Totally. Yeah. I know. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. I'm joined by Associate Editor Matt Milham.
Hello.
Kylie Jacques,
Hello.
Design Editor. Okay, this is going to get your dander up, Matt. So our question 3 in the third half of our podcast comes from Henrik. Forgive me, Henrik, if I'm saying that incorrectly.
Henrik.
I
don't know. Henrik?
Henrik?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay. He didn't give me a phonetic spelling.
Doesn't seem so hard. It's Henrik.
Okay. I just went through the full list of all the podcasts you guys have produced and didn't see one episode on vehicles we builders use to get ourselves and our tools and materials to and from the job site. Is no one concerned with this? I spend on average $600 a month on gas. I put over 20 gallons of fuel into my van twice a week. That means I'm putting something like 250 pounds of CO2 and other pollutants into the atmosphere each week. I find it completely hypocritical to try and build an efficient, energy-efficient structure when I'm spewing all this stuff out of my tailpipe. He doesn't say stuff. But when I search for a sustainable cargo vehicle, I find nothing. You guys there have an opportunity to start a conversation on increasing the demand for a sustainable mode of transporting our tools and materials. Why don't you do so? I have an 8-year-old. I don't doubt you guys have children. Don't you have concerns for our ecological futures? I suspect you are more concerned with pleasing your sponsors, so you have no incentive to start any sort of conversation on the vehicles we use.
You nailed it.
Them's fighting words.
Yeah.
Because no vehicle manufacturers in the U.S. are advertising practical electric vehicles for our industry. I see plenty of ads on FHB for gas guzzlers. How about we work on increasing the demand for an electric alternative? I suppose I already know the answer. If you respond to me at all, it'll be to call me a hippie dreamer or question my manliness. After all, what self-respecting macho hammer-wielding grunt would even think of driving an electric vehicle to a construction site? I just got to wonder if Henrik has ever listened to this show.
I know. Did he listen to the part where I talked extensively about how much I hate American trucks?
And I don't think anyone would consider us hammer-wielding macho grunts.
Certainly not me.
I mean, I want to talk probably the very first paragraph.
You got your dander up right away with this. So
Matt
I'm going to let
did some
you go.
extensive research, as he does.
Yeah, where he talks about, spewing only 250 pounds of CO2 off 40 gallons of gas or whatever.
Is that true?
He's putting in. He's significantly lower. I mean, his number that he puts there.
So how much is it really?
It's closer to 800 pounds that he's spewing in a week.
Okay.
So, I mean, because you produce almost 20 pounds of carbon dioxide for each gallon of gas. So if he's putting in 40 gallons, 40 times 20 is
That's
800.
not higher math.
Yeah.
Okay. So where do your numbers come from? Because Henrik's going to call us on this for sure.
This is from the U.S. EIA, Energy Information Agency.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Do you think they're trustworthy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, I also looked it up on some chemistry websites.
All right.
And I can
Of course
give you
you do.
all of the information on how to calculate it, but roughly 87% of the weight of a gallon of gas is carbon. And every one of those carbon atoms meshes with 2 oxygen atoms already in the atmosphere to produce carbon dioxide.
Okay.
So
Should I do a chemical diagram here for this?
Oh, we can.
Okay. So
Bumming me
what do
out,
you think
man.
about his point that, like, some people have to drive a truck because of what they do for a living?
I actually applaud him for thinking about it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it is a novelty, right? This is not a. What I found interesting is, so I was like, well, what does a work truck get with regard to mileage? And it used to be that you could go to the window sticker on the web and see immediately, very clearly, quickly, what the miles per gallon is. And that doesn't appear to be the case anymore. So I went, cars are a different story, but when I looked at work trucks specifically, if I would click on the link to the supposed window sticker of a vehicle I was looking at in inventory here in Danbury, you couldn't see the miles per gallon. So you have to go dig deeper, and it is kind of a pain to figure out what they get. And it's not good.
No.
That's why it's buried.
It's totally buried.
Yeah, they don't want you to know how much you're going to be paying for gas on top of your ridiculous truck payment. Yeah.
So that's another point, is they're stupidly expensive compared to what I remember when I got into this business. When I got into this business, you could get a truck for 15 or 20 grand, right? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't fancy. It had a bench seat. It had a rubber floor. It didn't have air conditioning. It probably had 2-wheel drive, but it only cost, 15 or 20 grand. Now they cost 50.
Should get Rob on here and talk about his element and what he can do with that thing.
I could get a lot in my vibe when that was the only vehicle I had.
So I think he makes a good point. So I went looking, and the closest thing I would consider to a real work truck that gets what I would describe as reasonable mileage is the Mercedes Metris cargo van. And it's not a full-size van. It's kind of like in between. It's like a minivan, size, a little bigger perhaps. And the combined rating for that is 22 miles per gallon, which is bad, but not terrible, especially for a vehicle that has to carry stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming the 22 miles per gallon, and I'm assuming all the figures that I'm going to cite in a little bit come with the vehicle empty. So, of course, it's going to go down if you have full of tools and material or towing. That vehicle has a 2-liter turbocharged engine and 199 cubic feet of cargo space. They have an even cheaper version called I love this is so German, the Metris Cargo Worker for $26,500. The other version, the base model, is $30,000.
Yeah.
And most vehicles get far less than that, right? The best performing van I could find was the.
But I mean, this is his point. Like, that there aren't better cars out there. Yeah. Like we know the mileage sucks for all these things.
Yes. What do we do?
Well, I don't think the technology is quite there yet. I mean, you see all the electric vehicles that are out there are extremely small, extremely light, and they still don't get blow your hair back.
They get 30s
range.
30s, right?
Right. No, that's the thing. A lot of these hybrids or whatever, they get really good mileage, but they don't have really good range a lot of times, especially the electric vehicles. They don't have amazing range.
And they're mostly cars, right?
And they're mostly cars. And when you start putting the loads on them that you would have, like hauling around materials
or even just tools,
like the amount of batteries that you would have to be able to power that thing, it's sort of like diminishing returns, because you're all of a sudden you're hauling around 2 tons of batteries to run a truck 200
right,
miles
to carry a few hundred pounds of stuff.
Yeah.
And you probably have to charge it throughout the day if you're somebody who goes from site to site, right?
So a Google search I did for most fuel efficient van came up with this. So Chrysler introduced, I don't know if it was this year or last year, the Pacifica plug-in hybrid, which is a standard-size minivan, but it's a plug-in hybrid, and it has an electric range of 32 miles. So assuming you weren't going to job sites that were too far away, this could be an option for you. But this is not a work truck. This has got 3 rows of leather seats. This is meant to haul a family, not building materials. But you might be able to order this thing without the seats and make it into a truck to haul stuff. But I think that's where we're going.
Yeah, but I think, in the near term, until those technologies exist, like a lot of it just comes down to like what you're doing personally. Why are you driving a truck to work if you don't need it?
Right.
Yeah.
Get those delivered. Get your supplies delivered. Plan ahead. Make sure that you have everything that you need on site, and don't be making Home Depot runs in the middle of the day.
Right.
And then, when everything's there and you've got your job site trailer there with all of your tools, you're not hauling those back and forth every day. Then you drive your Yaris to the job site every day, and you get, that's essentially
or a hybrid or
whatever, some higher mileage
or
car,
a cargo bike, whatever.
Yeah, if you're close enough, walk.
This is a conversation that has come up in the Taunton Press and on Green Building Advisor. The folks, I believe it was on Martha's Vineyard, what's the name of that company, Matt?
South
Mountain Company did a analysis of their carbon footprint with their workers going to a job site every day, and it is staggering.
Yeah.
It is really staggering, because you're talking about 8, 10, 12 people all driving a single vehicle that doesn't get good mileage.
Right. So if you really want to practice what you preach, and this is a solution that could get really expensive, if you're going a long distance, or if your crew's going a long distance for a project, house them on site and just build that cost into your bid. If somebody's got the money for
like an RV?
Yeah. Well, maybe not an RV, but, like a cheap motel or something like that.
So just stay there.
Yeah. Or tents. I don't know what people are willing to put up with. That's something I would be fine with, but I don't know.
I think that's a lot to ask of somebody who's worked 8 or 10 hours doing carpentry to come and sleep on an air mattress in a tent.
A nice flat, hard surface is probably good for the back.
How much do you think you could do with my Ford Fiesta?
So there's the MPG sticker for the Pacifica Hybrid, and it claims 82 combined miles per gallon, which I think is kind of laughable. But what they're doing is assuming you're going to be using it mostly in the electric mode or often, right? I don't know how those numbers are figured out, but I know it doesn't get 82 miles per gallon.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't know how those things work.
It's expensive too, so $42,000 to start. So
yeah, and that's another barrier to entry.
Sure.
Is just the cost. I mean, when you can get a regular minivan for considerably cheaper.
Yes.
Yep.
So, in reference to him describing us as hammer-wielding macho grunts, so what do you drive?
The aforementioned Ford Fiesta.
And for those of you who don't know, we'll have a picture of Kylie's Fiesta up on the podcast page, and it's what you might imagine. It's a little tiny four-door car, right?
Right, and it's as close as I can get to an electric vehicle.
And what did that cost in round numbers?
$16,000.
Let's see, that seems like a good deal to me.
That's why I went with it.
And what are you driving?
My daily driver is a Subaru Impreza.
And it gets 30-something, right?
It gets, in the winter, about 32. In the summer, 36 to 38 miles a gallon. Yeah,
and it has
almost all highway.
And it has all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And you can carry tools in the back of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's basically
And
a
you
little
take that
station
instead
wagon.
of your truck.
And I take that
you're
instead of the
conscious.
truck. Yeah, and then besides that, I have that.
And then when you need a
that
truck,
old Vibe, which gets great mileage. That thing gets about 38 miles to the gallon too. But
So you have 3 vehicles.
yeah,
So you
well,
can't really
that thing
practice
I would
what you
love to.
preach.
No,
he collects.
I collect old cars. No, the main reason I haven't gotten rid of that car is because I drive a lot of miles, and I'm trying to keep some miles off of my sort of daily driver. So hopefully the Vibe will get back on the road again soon. I can't drive it in the winter though.
And so when you need a truck, you have one.
Yeah, I've got basically a full set. I've got a Toyota Tundra, 2003, nice and old.
Yeah.
But it gets terrible mileage, maybe 16 to 19, somewhere in there. It's a V6. It's like pretty much the smallest Tundra you could get at the time. And yeah, I haven't even had that truck a year, but I got it. I wouldn't say necessarily out of necessity, but sort of out of necessity, because I can't pick up materials. I can't pick up, compost. I can't go to the dump as I'm like ripping walls and stuff out of my house.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. And constantly borrowing vehicles from other people just gets really old really fast.
And imagine what it's like for them.
Yeah.
You are that person, right, Patrick?
Yeah. And I didn't want to do that anymore. Neither me nor my fiance wanted to do that anymore. So
That's fair.
So most of my life, I've been a truck person. When I was in high school, my dad bought me an S10 pickup truck that I drove for years, and then I traded that on a Toyota four-wheel drive pickup truck. I had that for many years, and then I had a family, and it had a standard cab, so you couldn't really put 3 people, especially a car seat, in the front of it. It would have been in front of the gear shift. And then I went for a stretch without a pickup truck, and my life was very incomplete. Yeah. It's very hard to build something if you don't have some kind of vehicle to go to the home center, to go to the dump, as you point out. So a few years ago, I bought this Dodge Dakota. This is a 2002. I think I bought it and it had 62,000 miles on it and paid $4,500. So that's why I bought this truck. But like most of them, it gets terrible gas mileage. I don't really keep track of it, but the highway estimate is 18 and the around town is 16, and it has a V6 engine.
Yeah.
But your commute is very short.
I drive 5.5 miles to work, so.
Probably doesn't even get hot enough. You probably got to change your oil like every 2,000 miles.
I change it every 3,000, and I've had to put a couple exhaust systems on it because they rot out from the condensation. This most recently, I put in a stainless steel exhaust system, so that's working pretty well.
Good.
Yeah. I say cheap trucks are better than expensive trucks.
Yeah, I also paid $4,500 for mine.
Yeah.
But it had like 200,000 miles on it when I bought it.
Like, why are you going to spend all this money on a new truck and then destroy it by putting all kinds of crap in the back of it?
Yeah, that's the thing. I wanted something that already had dents so I don't feel bad when I'm just throwing...
It's very liberating.
Yeah, all these pieces of this outdoor fireplace that I demolished into it.
Despite its age, though, this truck was in very good condition, and the interior is still brand new. So I would.
You can get really good prices on former rental vehicles.
I believe it.
Yeah, I bought one once. That was a good way to go because they'd been maintained and were well, supposedly.
Yeah,
it seemed to be. It lasted a long time.
Yeah.
Henrik, I don't know if we answered your question.
But we do care.
We do agree with you that it is a problem. And I would say, like Matt was suggesting, if you can spend less money on a single vehicle, buy two cheaper ones, one that's a truck, right? And one that's a car that gets decent mileage, and try and use the car whenever you possibly can.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think what I would say is don't come to us to solve the problem that you see. Start your own truck company and make battery-operated trucks. Become the next Elon Musk for trucks.
There's a company in California that's like does conversions on old VW buses and makes them all electric. And then they sell them to hipsters for like $100,000. So that's something else to consider.
Brilliant.
Yeah. They are pretty cool.
You're going to get rich, Henrik.
And you can thank us later.
Yeah.
Or just send money.
Oh,
Yeah.
incidentally, it's saying that the pages of Fine Homebuilding are filled with truck ads. So
That's right.
that was another thing I wanted.
Yeah.
So I went looking, and I went back 5 issues, and we have an advertiser index in every issue, so it's very easy to look up whose products are being advertised in the pages. Do you guys want to take a stab at how many ad pages we had dedicated to trucks in 5 issues?
I know.
Because I told you.
Yeah, you told me so.
It's 5. 2-page spreads and a single page ad, all for Dodge.
So an average of 1 per issue.
1 per issue.
Yeah.
And it advertised one of their city vans, the little tiny modern vans that get 20-some miles to the gallon, as much as 28. A normal van like this guy's probably driving, and a beautiful 4-door dually pickup that I was coveting. I can understand why people want to drive nice trucks too, because I rented one and went to Western Pennsylvania, and it was lovely. It was a very nice vehicle, comfortable.
They're like luxury cars now.
I don't know how you fit into that little Toyota, because I had that same model, and I'm 5'5", and I was not comfortable. And I drove to Pennsylvania in that thing. And you're what, 6'1"?
I used to be.
I had an 87 Toyota 4-wheel drive pickup, and I love that thing.
I love my trucks. I have dreams about that truck still.
Yeah, that truck was amazing.
Very handy. I liked it too.
I had bucket seats, so I didn't even have room for
3.
No room for 3.
What I loved about the 4-wheel drive pickup trucks from Toyota at that era is they were came from the factory, lifted, they amazing ground clearance.
Yep.
The only drawback was it had manual locking hubs, so if you really got into a muddy, disgusting spot, you had to climb outside through the mud to get to the wheels.
Yeah. I spun that truck once in Colorado.
They were squirrely. I spun mine too in snowy conditions.
Yeah. I was just looking for, it started to snow. I was in this canyon. I'm looking for a spot to pull over to lock the hubs. Could not find one. And the truck spun around before, and fortunately landed right in a pull-off.
Nice.
Yeah. I got super
I
lucky.
like that visual.
Yeah.
I used to put sand tubes in mine. That helped a lot.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Totally. Okay. Hi, FHB. Love the podcast. Thanks so much for all of your insight. Quick question. I'm doing a drywall repair in a tiny half bath. When we pulled down the ceiling, we realized that the ventilation fan isn't actually connected to anything. Obviously, a working fan is a good idea when the bath is right off the living room and sees a lot of use. But the bath is in the middle of the house, so there's really nowhere to vent it without making holes or a soffit. There is a boiler room below with flue pipes that I doubt vent anywhere, since they look like a mess and it smells terrible. But I told him, I presume that's the homeowner, to look into that, and it's above me. My question, I don't want to pull out the vent altogether. Can I vent it into the boiler room? How hack illegal would that be? There is no fresh air vent to any vent in the boiler room. And do they make some sort of filtered recirculation bath fan? Like a range hood, maybe? Thanks, guys. I don't know where to begin with this one. What do you think, Kylie?
Well, I find this kind of interesting, too, because I'm dealing with a vent that doesn't seem to be very effective, and I'd like to figure out what to do with it, so it's somewhat related, although I don't have a boiler room that I'm looking to vent
Dump
into.
it into. What do you think of that?
I don't know that it's a great idea to be dumping methane from yourself into a possibly
room with a
explosive
combustion
environment. Yeah.
I don't think it's a good idea either. Just because it's not doing anything, right? It's not removing any of the humidity.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, is there humidity that you're trying to deal with this fan? And if there is, then you don't want to vent it anywhere in this house.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a half bath, so that issue is less of a concern than it
Right.
would be if there was a shower in there, right?
Right.
Yeah. I did dig into this to find out that there is indeed a recirculating bath fan from Brone Newtone.
Yeah, there's a bunch out there from what I could see.
The one I pulled up was the 682 NT for $37 on Amazon.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do anything except make some noise.
Yeah.
And there's a charcoal filter in there, allegedly, that
is supposed to handle some odors.
Has 4.5 stars up there.
That's what I found. You think the Newtone people all took a turn writing a review about their fan? No, it's not fair, is it?
I think I've talked about it before. I have sort of a fan that works sort of on a similar principle in my kitchen because we don't have a range hood.
Right, I've lived with that.
Yeah, and it has a charcoal filter on it, and it does a decent job, but you do have to replace it on a pretty regular basis. But then again, that's a kitchen, and we're using it. It turns on automatically. Like it senses anytime there's anything weird in the air and turns itself on. So it runs.
Fancy.
Really?
Yeah. So like as soon as you turn on the stove and it like any sort of like particulates or whatever, from cooking oil or whatever, sort of like get into the thing, it just kicks on automatically.
Nice.
Yeah. And it runs at variable speeds. It's pretty nice. But like I said, you need to clean it on a regular basis.
What do you think about the bath fan idea?
It's probably not a terrible idea. But I mean, if you're just dealing with odors, just get a can of Febreze or whatever, spray that.
I have trouble believing there's no way to duct a bath fan because it's a small duct, right? Mm-hmm. You're talking 3 or 4 inches, and you have to make holes, and you have to get it to the outside.
Cut out some drywall, run it parallel
it's easy
to the
fix
joist,
drywall.
get it outside.
If you have a textured ceiling, that's a bigger problem, but...
Why?
Well, because then you have to match the texture, and that's always a challenge, especially for handy folks or carpenters who aren't used to doing it every day, right? So,
do they have anything like that thing for the sewer pipe where they poke through one end and just yanked it through? Because that would be a great solution.
That'd be awesome
here.
Through blocking and stuff, right? Through joists. But that's the problem is if there is blocking, like going with the joist base, because you only need to make a hole at both ends, right? And you can snake flex duct to the hole on the outside or toward the inside, which is what I would do because the hole's bigger to grab the duct then and connect it to the fan.
Would that work no matter the length of the run?
Well, most houses aren't that big.
You said it's in the middle of the house. Who knows? Maybe this is 6,000 square.
So even if it was 20 feet, I don't think that would be ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's more than that, you could go the other way, presumably, right? Theoretically.
Yeah.
But I'd say do whatever you can to put a real fan in there because it's going to be nicer for the folks who are visiting.
Yeah.
Or put it in a soffit, like you mentioned. And one great problem solver in this world is the Panasonic Whisper Fit, which is a good bath fan. It has a 10 1/4 inch square housing that's only 5 5/8 inch deep. So it'll fit in a 2x6 stud or joist cavity, which most of them are much taller and they just won't fit. So try to put a fan in there, I would say. I think the recirculating thing is a second best choice.
Yeah.
Febreze would be last.
I don't like how that stuff smells. I bet
terrible.
you don't like that either.
You know me, Patrick.
Yeah. I totally think it smells worse than bad smells.
Mm-hmm.
You could also just invite a skunk into your house.
And the fan would not.
And then it would overwhelm every other smell.
What do you think about this, Jeff? What would you do?
Well, I agree with you. The idea that it's possible to get a fan through there, get a duct outside somehow.
Yeah. And even if you have to cut a couple holes, like if you have intermediate blocking or whatever, and you have to cut a hole and drill a hole or cut a hole in it or knock it out and get on with your life.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks to Matt and Kylie for joining me and Jeff. And thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. My goodness, we're losing it now. Please send us your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. We've had some success in that regard. My latest plea actually had some results. We had probably 10 new comments on the iTunes interface. So thanks to all of you for doing that. It does help folks find the podcast. And when the comments get too stale, people don't put a lot of stock in them. So please do that, and we're grateful. And thank you all for listening. Please keep craft alive, and happy building.